All right, hello everyone. Welcome to the Bishop's interview. This is Nathan Hinckley, and it's a pleasure to welcome everyone. I see some folks joining us online and in the chat, so that's really cool. Hope you've had a good weekend. Um, Before we get going, I want to bring back in a guest. She has joined us once before, so some of you will recognize her. She's awesome, and this is Aimee. Let me welcome her. Aimee, hello. And you're muted. Oh, there you
Yes,
go.
I was like, man, total fail. Yes,
No, you're good.
I am glad to be back. Glad to be here.
Yes.
Hopefully, we don't break the internet, but glad to be here.
All right, so I've got some comments over here. Mark says, did your new underwear arrive yet that Aimee ordered? Mark, Aimee did order me some new underwear, but I don't know. It's a little risque. I'll get a picture.
And not me, Amy. Different
Oh yeah,
Amy.
yeah, yeah.
His wife,
My
Amy.
that's right. That's right. Thanks for clarifying that. Oh, hello Wayne. Hello Janine. Yes, we've got great people with us. So Aimee, you joined me. It's been, I don't know, has it been 3 weeks now or so, or
Yeah, something like that.
something
And
like
and
that?
and real quick, I think at some point you'll need to get the pictures of the Masonic underwear that you can buy off of Amazon, just to share with everyone. In my random deep dives, I came across Masonic underwear, and it is perfect.
Oh
It
my.
has all the compass and all of that on it, but uh,
You,
anyways, as I digress.
yeah, you've gotten me interested now. I'll have to check that out. Wayne says 37 below. Oh my gosh, is that if I'm reading that right, that's some serious cold he's got going on. We are actually pretty cold here too. Isn't it cold out, Aimee?
I thought it was kinda cold, yeah.
Yeah. Are y'all
Yeah.
getting any snow or anything today?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
I know you're a little bit more north than me, about an hour away, but did you all get any?
Yeah, so my son was driving home about an hour ago from working out, and he was like, "These roads are covered." So, yeah, we. I was telling some other people in the last show that our kids still haven't been to school yet from Christmas break. So,
Oh, wow. So mine
yeah,
have, mine have. Um, so for those who aren't aware, I live about an hour or so. I don't even know if it's a full hour because 'cause I'm in the Powell area, um,
yeah, pretty close. Yeah, maybe.
south.
Yeah.
But the things that can go on in that hour south can be, vast.
Peter says it's 108 here. I don't believe that unless he's chilling in a hot tub or something.
Right? Where are you, Peter?
Oh, let's see. He says from a very hot Monday morning down here in paradise. So I don't know. You never know. Okay, so yeah, so we had you on and we had songs with us that day, and that was actually the first time I had done a live, I believe. And so since then, I've done all live. So I kind of I really like our people that join in the chat. And so I understand, Aimee, you have just been on a trip. Is that right?
I did. I just went on a trip. Now that my kids are a little older, my husband and I decide to take a trip every January so that we, instead of buying each other Christmas and birthday presents, since we both are born in December, we instead go somewhere and experience something we haven't experienced before. So, yes,
Where was that somewhere this time?
so some of it we've have experienced before, some of it we hadn't. But we ended up flying into Paris. We spent a couple days in Paris. We went to Paris Disneyland, which we're big Disney people here in my house. So we did that. And then we rented a car and we drove to Luxembourg. Um, and from Luxembourg, we went to Trier, Germany, and explored the Roman ruins there.
Oh my. What are we seeing here in this picture?
Oh, so this is actually a village in France. So this isn't one that I went to this time. This is a I
Okay.
really want to go to,
Okay.
and this is in southern France. I've actually been to this village
Okay.
before.
All right.
Um,
Well, I was stalking you there, so I thought, oh, this
yeah,
must be
yeah,
from her trip, but that's a different
yeah.
place. Okay.
So the ruins that we saw an amphitheater. We were able to. It was kind of cool. We were able to go underneath the amphitheater and see where they like housed people. And as much as we really wanted to start reenacting things from Gladiator, we realized we were the only Americans there and probably shouldn't. Um, then we went up to the Roman baths and again got to kind of walk underneath the baths and got to walk on it's called Porta Nigra, which is one of the original gates to Trier, Germany, which is the oldest city in Germany and also one that has kind of a rich history with the Romans. So it was pretty cool.
Wow. Okay.
I
Well, that
I will
sounds
say
amazing.
too, I also so after leaving the church and trying to decide if I liked alcohol or not, I tasted wine here in Tennessee and then in a few other places in the States, and I just can't like it. To me,
Okay.
it's just not good. Yes, here we go. But American wine, ew. Chardonnay in France, yes, totally different experience.
Really?
So it doesn't have the sulfites in it. It really tastes more like a less sweet grape juice. And
Okay.
I'm like, I could definitely become a lush. And okay, so I don't know how to pronounce it. Um, I wanted to try it, but we didn't get a chance to. But I did try some apple sparkling wine outside of Champagne, France, and it's my new favorite thing. And I've been trying to find it here and can't find it. So
Okay.
guess I'll have to go back to France.
Well, that's not too bad. Oh, by the way, Peter says he's in South Australia. So, okay, I guess that
Okay.
makes sense. Okay, well, sounds like an awesome trip. What was your favorite part?
I think my favorite part was walking through the streets of Luxembourg, and we went to the Castmates in Luxembourg, which it goes back to the Roman times, but it's these series of tunnels that were used, and they just kept building onto it. So the Romans used it as kind of a way in and out of Luxembourg City, and then in medieval times, it was used as a dungeon. And then during World War II, a lot of the people in the city of Luxembourg City ended up living in these tunnels to avoid being bombed. So it's just got this really cool history that you can walk through. And then the food scene is on point in Luxembourg. And I found a place that I fell in love with. People will say Belgium has the best chocolate. No, they're totally wrong. They've never been to Luxembourg. Luxembourg, by
Mm,
far, hands down, best chocolate ever.
nice. Okay. Well, sounds like an awesome trip. I pulled a couple other screenshots when I was trying to stalk your trip. Let me see what else I have
Yes.
here. This isn't about your trip, but of course that was the wine. I like this. You said my ducks may not be in a row, but at least they're having fun. Your ducks probably hate you for making them line up like that.
Oh, yes. Yes, they
So
probably do.
is that your is that a story of your life or
Um, yeah, kind of. My ducks are they're free range ducks. Yeah. And if
All
anyone were to catch them, they'd probably like try to bite them.
right.
Uh
All right, I got one more here. Let me see what else I had. All right, I like this one. This one might lead us into our topic a little bit here. I'm not sure what this was from, but so you said, or someone said, she's so lucky. No, darling, she worked hard. She stayed up late. She lost people along the way. She cried herself to sleep. She ignored the critics. She invested in herself. She wanted to quit countless times, but she didn't.
So, yeah, this being posted recently, there's a lot to unpack just from this one.
Okay.
But I've had people say to me, like, if I've talked about my relationship with my husband or talked about my kids, like, oh, aren't you so lucky that you have that relationship? Or aren't you so lucky that you've been able to do X, Y, and Z? And I'm like, no, it's not luck. Um, it's not luck. I have worked my tail off. I have
Hmm.
risen from the ashes. My relationship, we have a great relationship, but we work to have a great relationship. It's not luck. It's what you put into life that you get out of it. And for people to think that because someone is happy and successful that it's luck, I think is looking at life through glasses that I don't possess. So,
Mm, I love that. All right, so Aimee, the last time you came on, we titled that "Saints and Sisters," and so we really we're kind of going the second part of this video, this podcast episode. We're going to talk more about this whole thread of Mormonism and how we can. I say we. Some people say, "Why do you say we?" I'm like, I don't know. I still say we, but. And how we are on the wrong side of history still when it comes to women's rights and women's issues. And so we're going to get into that. We actually called this part of the lipstick series, and we'll get into that also. And I think most people probably know what that's referring to. But I thought before we go down that road, I thought it would be great for me and also for our viewers just to learn a little bit more about you, a little bit about your Mormon story, Mormon history, and kind of what it was like growing up, and ultimately what led you out. But can you kind of paint that picture a little bit for us as a young
sure.
Mormon?
Yes, as a young Mormon. So my parents are both converts to the church. Um, and then my mom's whole family is definitely not. Except I did find, interestingly enough, there's some all reds on her family history that were moonshiners that have a little bit of a tie to the all reds that ended up in Mexico. So I want to explore that a little bit further. But yeah, so I grew up in California, both parents converts. My family was never really super active, ever. We didn't actually start going to sacrament meeting until my older brother was old enough to pass the sacrament. Uh, I don't know why, but we never did. And I do remember at one point them saying that my dad needed to start going to church if he was going to baptize my younger siblings. There's a pretty good age gap. I mean, 5 years, but a good age gap between me and my next youngest sibling. So yeah, we kind of started going, but didn't really. My grandma was pretty devout. She was there all the time. I would say up until she couldn't be there anymore. She was there all the time. And my rebellion in high school was to go to church. And um
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, because I mean, I grew up, my mom and at the time I thought, "Oh, this is so bad, you're drinking coffee." Now it's like, well, that was a stupid thing to think. Um, but yeah, like my mom drank coffee. My mom worked on Sundays. My parents were not cookie cutter Mormon, like what you would ever imagine. And honestly, my family was not kind of, very broken. And so my rebellion was I'm going to go to church. And when I was there, I saw people who are amazing people, amazing moms. My young women's leaders were actually phenomenal. And I looked at them and thought, okay, this is what I want for my family. This is what I want to emulate my family to be after. So that's what kept me going.
Mhm.
Um, I left home at 17, came out to Tennessee to go to the University of Tennessee, and shortly it was funny, I always was like, "I'm never going to go and just get married," but I did. Uh, but in non Latter-day Saint slash Mormon vernacular, and I'll use those interchangeably, and apologies if I offend someone, um, but we did date 2 years before we got married, partially because when we met, I was only 17. Um, and we dated 2 years, we got married in the San Diego Temple, and from that, we were pretty active, up until a couple years ago, even though we were both it's funny, we talk about it now, but internally, we were both kind of going, We don't really wanna be at church," but we were afraid of what the other would say or do.
Mm.
So, we each were having our own faith crisis without talking to the other person about it. And so, for many years, we were going, I as soon as I turned 18, I was called into the Stake on Women's, and then from there, my callings back and forth, were always young women's, except for a brief time that I was in primary, very brief. Um, they don't like it when you get the kids to behave by providing cups of candy, and then as they don't behave, you eat their candy in front of the kids, and they're like, "Sorry, I told you you need to listen, and I would eat your candy, so,
You were
guess
just
what? Now you
getting
don't get candy."
you were just getting your ducks in a row.
I was just getting my ducks in a row. I mean, but, you can't really you have no like, these kids act horribly, and you have nothing that you can do, and they, like, run around and act crazy. There were some kids that just would wanna leave and go run around the church, and I'm like, "I don't care," so I open the door and let them run around the church. I'm like, "If your parents don't care, I don't care." So,
So
uh,
did parents give you crap for that, or was it the
um,
bishopric or leadership?
so the bishopric and the primary presidency did not like that I would just let the kids run around, and I'm like, "Well, I'm not gonna force them to be in this room. I can't. I'm not gonna touch them. Like, I'm not gonna, like, be like, 'No, you have to stay here.' Like, what am I gonna do? There's nothing I can do." So they didn't like that. Some of the parents got upset when their kids didn't get candy and the other kids did, and I just said, "Well, then you need to have a conversation with your kids on what it means to behave and listen. Then they'll get candy.
And
Sorry."
so that got you released.
It did. It got me released from primary, and then I went
Okay.
back to young women's. So, I will say though, this really goes in with my Mormon story. There was a period of time that, me and my really good friend, who I'm not gonna mention, her name right now, she was Relief Society president, and I was called to be a welfare specialist, primarily because had previously worked in I worked at the health department. I was familiar with social services in Knox County, that sort of thing, and it was to really kind of help people connect with those social services. Um, and during that stint was really, like, when church became, honestly, hell. And and I I go to therapy and still talk about how awful it was. And even kind of leading up to that, I mean, there were things. So I am someone which this plays into kind of my idea behind, standing up for women and women's rights. And one bishop said, "You're a little too feminist for us here." And, yeah, I realized, yeah, I am a feminist. And in part of the fact that I am a abuse survivor, sexual abuse survivor has played into that. And I had experiences with the church where this person ended up being excommunicated. Things weren't handled well. Things were handled well and then they weren't handled well, but that's a complete story that I could talk about for hours at another time. Um, but at the end of the day, this person was still excommunicated. And I kind of held on to, okay, there was a little bit of, I guess, quasi justif like, I don't know, justice in a little stretch of the imagination, even though it wasn't it was, like, coming up on a year, and I have messages from, uh, the stake president where this person was then going to church asking like, "Hey, do you want this person? Is it okay? They've been coming. They should come back to church. We just want your opinion." And then I have letters from at the time the first presidency, Thomas S. Monson, about the whole situation. And anyways, it was a hot mess, but I do hold on to the fact that there was that small he did get excommunicated, and I will say him getting excommunicated was something that was done right. Um, but having been this welfare specialist, it just started really like hammering into me things that I was seeing and struggling with. When I say like I didn't really want to be there and my husband didn't really want to be there, I struggled so much with the way young women were treated since I had been called into stake young women's. And that interaction with the bishop, um, and it was multiple interactions with the bishop that really just it was like it got to a point that I'm like, I can't do this anymore. So as welfare specialist, we would go in, and the Relief Society president and I would go in and do what the Relief Society president's supposed to do when people need assistance and look through things. We both felt it was very weird and
Look,
invasive.
looking in their cupboards and cabinets
Cupboards,
and
yeah, like super invasive, super invasive. And it made the person feel uncomfortable. We felt uncomfortable. But at the end of the day, we both felt like it doesn't matter if they have food. It doesn't matter if they have X, Y, and Z. If someone's saying they need help, they need help. Let's help them. Well, this bishop would then tell them when he would meet with them that the Relief Society president and myself said that they shouldn't get help, and so because we said that, he couldn't get help, that he couldn't provide help to them, and kind of put that on us, even though it was completely false. And he would get up in the middle of sacrament meeting and call us out by name, and he would relate us to like being Pahoran, and I mean, very, very targeted things that were said about us. And from there, the ward bought into all of this, and it turned into this huge ward gossip ring.
mm,
I ended up being released from being welfare specialist, but then was called in to be Young Women's president at that time. So I'm in Young Women's, and these girls are being, again, just okay, we need you to watch the kids. We need you to uh, bring the snacks. And these girls are wanting to do more. They're looking at things, and they're like, why is it that it's like might as well just cook, clean, all of that. Like this is what we get to do while the boys are over there playing basketball. Um, and so I would stand up for them, and I would say, hey, they could do more things in this. This is not what just because they're girls, this is not what they should be doing. And um, this whole gossip ring was still going around. There was a good group of those girls were amazing, and there was one girl in particular who my heart breaks for, that leaders were getting onto her and onto her and onto her, and they were spreading horrible things about her. They wouldn't have her in her car. And I'm not going to go into details in case she comes across this. I mean, she knows those pieces, but I'm not going to say anything about why, because, you know, I don't want her to be hurt now that even though she's older, I'm only going to share things that she is aware of.
yeah.
And I would stand up to these other women who were in my presidency and say, we really need to approach these young women with love. It's not our place to judge them. It's not our place to judge their family lives. We're here to love them. And then um, they would do the same thing with the way people would dress. There was a family that immigrated from Venezuela. And, you know, my thought on dress all the time, even now, that I have a teenage daughter, but when I was in Young Women's and didn't have a teenage daughter, is I don't care what you have on. I don't get a say in it. I shut up and wear gray. My job as a leader is to show you that you matter, that you
Yeah.
care, that you matter. And I had multiple parents and the bishop come to me and say, "Are you going to bring clothes for this girl to put
Oh
on?"
boy. Mm.
And I'm like, "No, I'm not going to. No, that's not my job. My job is not to be the clothes police, the modesty police. It's not your job to worry about what someone else's kid is wearing either." And um, when I really started bucking back about those things, it got really heated with the parents. And
Mm.
then there was another instance where actually at the time the bishop's wife, it was when they were doing the um the bishop youth chats. They didn't call them firesides anymore, I don't think so. Like, what did they call them
Like
at
a
the time?
Bishop Youth discussion, BYD.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. And they were doing it at the house, and
Yeah.
the presidencies weren't there. Um And it was really just like the bishop and his wife. Well, the bishop's wife started pulling youth into her room, their
Mm.
bedroom, and going through phones and being very invasive. And the youth were coming to me saying, "This, I don't feel comfortable with this. I don't feel comfortable having, and she would like take the phone from them. And multiple people corroborated this. And so I spoke up and said, "Hey, you can't do this. This isn't okay. These girls are hurting." And even the boys that it happened to were like uncomfortable with it. But I kind of turned that over to the young men's presidency. We're like, "You can handle this how you want. I speak for the girls, like the Lorax. I speak for the trees. I speak for the girls." Um, and so yeah, so things went on, all of this, and finally, it was like the weirdest Sunday ever. Um, I was teaching a lesson on the priesthood, and one of the girls in the class asked, "Why do I always have to go to the bishop for things? My dad holds the priesthood. Why can't I go to him?" And at the time, this is when the structure of the classes had changed from having like the manuals to having more of a discussion that's led by the girls.
Hmm.
And that's how I always did each of my classes. Is it was not me teaching, but me facilitating a discussion. And I turned the question back to the group and said, "What do you guys think? Like, what do you guys feel about this? How do you think?" Um, and some of the girls were like, "Well, I think we should go to the bishop." And some of the other girls were like, "Yeah, I think that's a good point. We could go to our dads." Well, one of the other leaders who was involved in this whole gossip ring left and told one of the girls' parents something that was not accurate of what was going on. And this mom barges into the young women's room and starts yelling up and down at this teenage girl. Well, the bishop and a member of the stake presidency were in the room and sat in the back and did nothing. They said nothing. They were quiet. And I said to the woman, "You are not going to come in this class and berate any of these youth. If you have an issue, you can talk to the youth's parents outside of this, but you are not going to come in here when she's asking very real questions. These are questions she has. She's allowed to ask questions." And then after that whole thing went down, after the young women's class that day, we met with the member of the stake presidency, and I was like, "Why did you not say anything?" And he said to me and that young woman's mom, "Well, it's okay to ask questions as long as they're righteous questions."
Mm.
And so at that point, I was like, "I can't be in this ward anymore." And I was still trying to make church work for my family. So we changed wards, um, and went to a ward equidistance away from our house, but we ended up changing wards. And
Let me stop you real
yeah,
quick right there about changing wards, because there's a couple things I was thinking. Um, First of all, as far as the first thing you mentioned about doing the assistance for families and things like that, I'm in the same stake as you, or I was, or
yes,
whatever.
yes,
And I will just say there definitely was a feeling amongst the bishops when we would meet together that if you were, because we would see who's over their, not really budget, but who's spending more money of, the Lord's money, and who's spending less. And it was definitely always kind of like bravo and attaboy for the one spending less. And the ones spending more were always, we need to be, I mean, I will give it to the stake president. It was usually, I trust you guys, whatever you feel, but it was definitely incentivized to spend less. That was the first thing. The other thing I'll remember in a second. There's something else that you mentioned that I wanted to give my perspective on, but go ahead. So you switch wards, and
yeah. So we switched wards, and yes, I see that. Yes, I had to get permission to change wards, and so we finally got permission to change wards. And while this was happening, so things were also happening at girls' camp to these girls as kind of a, it was the same girl actually, and then the one I spoke of previously, and there were a couple others that were not the quote unquote in group. They were kind of more on the fringes, and things were happening at girls' camp to these girls too. And they're away from their parents, all of this. And when my daughter went to girls' camp, things happened to her, which was part of my no, we're done with anything. Um, but we changed wards, things are still happening. Well, the ward that we're in ends up having a combined dance with the ward we had just left. And one of the young women's leaders said to at the time, my 12-year-old son, that because he was my kid, he needed to go and kill himself.
what?
Yes, 100%. And when this was brought up to the stake presidency, it was, oh, well, they're a young leader, they're immature. And it was just brushed away.
Mm.
And at that point, my husband and I realized it's kind of like the scarlet letter. Like, we're blacklisted. We have a mark on us. We've caused too many issues.
Mm.
And when all this was going down, that other bishop ended up being released over some of this. And
Was Sorry, Janine was thinking the same thing I was thinking.
yeah,
Was that because to for him to kill himself? Was that because your family is the troublemaker family, and you don't
yeah,
matter to us, kind of thing? That
yeah,
was what it
yeah.
was about.
Like go kill. You should go kill yourself. And they said it was because he was my kid.
Mm.
Yeah.
So sorry. Wow.
Um, it was really, really hard, and I don't feel like there's actually any good justification for letting that slide. And the person still stayed in a leadership position. Um, all of that. They were still able to work with kids, and yeah, it was really hard. And I went home, like, honestly, you've met my husband, haven't you, Nathan? Because he was the state clerk at the time, and he's been a state clerk maybe
Yeah,
in passing.
yeah, in passing, I don't know him very well.
So he was the state clerk at the time, and in in order to make everything equal and fair, and this is something I realized, is the church kind of will use callings as a way of power and manipulation. And they didn't want it to seem like they were playing sides, so they released my husband the same time they released other people, so it didn't seem like, oh, we're supporting the Pearsons. But in my head, I'm thinking, we need some support. We've always been the ones supporting everyone else. We need some support. And we weren't getting it. We never got that support. Um,
And this is at the new ward,
at the
right?
new ward.
So
Mhm.
basically, things didn't get any better, and if anything, I don't know
Yeah.
about worse. But oh, I remembered the other thing I was going to say about the modesty stuff you was talking about. I had a sister missionary leave while I was bishop. She filled out her application as instructed, and then it got to the part where she had to attach a picture. Well, she sent it in. You know, she does all this on her own. There's a small little part that the bishop has to do. Well, the state calls me and says, Bishop, you need to tell that sister that her picture is not appropriate.
Oh.
And so I said, okay. So I said, sister, I'm sitting here trying to find, the words to say, and I tell her, and if I remember right, I think she changed her picture, and it was same situation, too tight, too low, whatever. And I think I had to go back to her again, and I felt stupid, but I just did whatever the friggin' steak told me. And I told her, I said, sister, you can't have that tight of a shirt for. So I feel stupid now. I should have just said, you know what? If you don't like what she's comfortable wearing or whatever, then, I guess you're going to have to tell her. But yeah, they put it on me. And so, anyways, yeah, stupid situation. So you get to your new ward, nothing's better. Is that when you basically call it quits, or was there some other?
So we still stuck it out for a few years, and then I was called back into Young Women's, um, and my daughter was at girls' camp, and I had to put some of these women were going to be at girls' camp, and I had to put some boundaries in place saying, "These people are not allowed to have access to my daughter. I cannot have them have access to my daughter." And I really need you, speaking to the stake president at the time, to be able to make sure that these people don't have access to my daughter. Well, they still had access to my daughter, and my a canoe fell and hit my daughter in the head, and she had a huge bump. She got sick. Things that would make you wonder, should we actually evaluate her for a concussion? And the stake president was actually like, oh man, when he finally got up there and I was there, he was like, maybe we should evaluate her for a concussion. Like I mean, it was there. But a woman from our ward who also is no longer a member, she went up to the camp director and went up to one of these other women and said, "Hey, we really should have Riley, who's my daughter, go see the nurse. She's not feeling well. She got hit really hard in the head with a canoe and it fell from the top rack onto her head." And they were like, "Oh no, she's just a Pearson. She's just being
Oh
dramatic."
boy. Hmm.
So no one looked at her until I was coming up anyways as a member of the Young Women's Presidency, and, no one even looked at like, made sure she was okay until I got up there, and then they thought I was gonna take her home with me, like, "Oh, we've now just solved this problem," and I should have, but I didn't. I let her stay, um, but that was really kind of the end for me where I was like, "I really want nothing to do with this anymore." Still held it in 'cause I would go on Sundays and just kind of go through the motions, sit out in the hall, all of that. There was a sacrament meeting where I was really annoyed, and the missionaries were getting up talking about their mission scriptures, and I said, "There's a scripture that I, go by, when people are, it's just really hard to deal with people, and it always makes me feel better, and it's the one about I wanna say it's Mosiah 12:15 5 about the people being strung. They have lashings upon their back and they're strung around like a dumbass. Like, I'm like, yeah. So I was like, y'all can look it up, but this is the scripture that I really try to live by when I think of people who are acting awful. And shared that. But once the SEC stuff came out, and my husband having been a clerk at church and all of that, that was really what kind of did it for our family. And we originally were just going to take a break and see what happens, and then the break turned into no one wanted to talk to us for a really long time until we stopped being there. And then when we stopped being there, everyone wanted to talk to us. And when I said we
That's
need to be do not contact, it was
mm.
almost like, okay, do not contact, game on. We're going to contact you even more than we were contacting you before you asked to be do not contact. And so I literally had to tell them, I'm going to sue you for harassment. I've documented every time that you have contacted me after I've asked you not to contact me anymore. And magically after that, we no longer were part of the church. I didn't have to write a letter. I didn't have
Are
to
you
do
is your membership is your
it.
name
Yeah,
gone?
I told the stake president, like,
You
this
want
is
me to look it up?
ridiculous. Yeah, look it up. See if we're actually gone.
All
See if we're
right,
actually gone. I don't have an account anymore. It
all
all
right.
was disabled.
Let me see. Let me see if it shows me
It
still
would have
here.
been in the Mountain Lake ward.
Okay. All right.
Y'all, this is real time to see if we're actually still
All right.
members or not. You're getting this
It's P
PEH.
PEH.
Yep.
Okay. Nope. You're gone.
Look at that. So it
Okay.
worked.
It worked. No letter, no nothing. All right. So
No letter.
one
Yep.
quick question, and then we'll get on with the lip sync.
Yes.
I know you have some stuff to share there. Did you have any truth claim doubts at any time in your life or up until that point?
Yes. Things like, how the hell did Moroni get from freaking South America to New York with the plates? And it was jungle. And I just think, like, living in the South, like having to go through all of that, like, that made no sense to me.
So
The
so kind
polygamy
of
stuff.
historicity stuff.
Yes, the polygamy
Polygamy.
stuff, always, and it always bothered me. And I told my husband, if I die and you get remarried, guess what? I'm going to be dating there and I'll remarry. Like, screw this, or I'll just not be in heaven with you, and you can be with your new wife, because that won't be heaven for me. But those were some of the big ones. And then as I got to the point with things that happened to our family, I really took a deep dive into different truth things. And I'm like, no wonder all of this stuff really never felt right for me, because the truth is not there. The truth is,
Yeah. That is what I have realized, that there are 1,001 reasons to not go anymore. Different people are affected by different things, but they're all valid. And I just want to agree with many of the comments that said, I'm so sorry, and I can't believe, you guys were treated that way. And I see a very happy person and happy family now.
well, thanks. I'm just glad that my kids are in a better place, and that we have given, while we have to own that we made the mistake of making them, like, go to church and things like that, that then now they're in a place that they can choose what church they want to go to. My daughter is currently going to a Methodist youth group, and my one son doesn't have a desire. The other one's going to a non-denominational church with his girlfriend, and it's kind of nice. I feel like Fat Aimee on Pitch Perfect 2, where she's talking about her relationship with Bumper, and is like, I can't be tied down. Like, that's how I feel about religion. Like, it's this whole new awakening where I'm able to kind of be the one who dictates my spirituality and my relationship with the divine, and it's not being dictated by someone else. So my ducks aren't being told to be lined up in a row. I get to let them free.
All right. Well, thanks for sharing that. That's a fascinating story, and I probably know a lot of the people that you didn't mention, but I can put some of the pieces together. So appreciate you for clearing that up. Shall we get on to the lipstick?
Yes, let's get on to the lipstick.
Okay, so for anyone that is not aware, I'm going to go ahead and play Elder Ballards. This is a minute and 10-second clip here. And this, well, we'll talk about it after. So here we go.
You know, every time we look at you, I know you're just waiting for me to talk about marriage, aren't you? I would not want to disappoint you. I just simply say to you, brethren, wake up. Open your eyes and look around a little. And you beautiful girls, don't wander around looking like men. Put on a little lipstick now and then and look a little charming. It's that simple. I don't know why we make this whole process so hard.
All right, that's pretty much it. So you can you can see in the background, not everyone is into it. I noticed this girl right here. She does have a little bit of a smirk right now, but not everyone's totally into it. And something Aimee and I we mentioned before we started. Let me go back to the very start. So I imagine that this comment that he does is at the very end of his, his whole training session, talk, whatever. And let me just stop it right off the bat. So he hasn't made his joke yet. So right here, right here, he hasn't made his joke. Now this is an apostle of the Lord Jesus Christ. He's imparting his wisdom, and I just look at the faces like I'm not.
The girl top, what's my top right?
This one?
Oh my gosh, that's like the ultimate side eye. Can we like make some memes out of her face, please?
Yeah, so they're not totally getting it, and maybe Elder Ballard senses it, and so he's like, you know what? I'm gonna give him a little bit of grace, I guess, and say he was joking, but I feel like that clip, especially because there's so many idiotic podcasts like this one that is just going to sit there and play that over and over. Hey, women, it's this simple. Put a little lipstick on. Don't go around looking like men. So that's why we've kind of called this the lipstick series. And like we said earlier, we did start this. A previous time. We called it Saints and Sisters, and you can go back and see that. We were joined by songs and had a great time. So, Aimee, you have prepared some of these slides. You want to kind of take us through a little bit?
Sure, definitely. But
All right.
first,
Okay.
this right here, y'all, I'd like to have this in the spirit of equity. This right here is a lipstick for men. And so I want to say, I think men, you should put a little lipstick on. Is it really that difficult? You can buy it. It'll make you look so much better. Do it.
So are you saying this guy right here is wearing this lipstick, and that's
supposedly
what they're marketing?
Yes,
Oh.
that's what it's a whole man makeup line.
Okay. Well,
yeah. And
he does look charming. I'll
Right?
admit that.
Yeah, he looks charming.
Well, not everybody thinks it's great, okay? Not everybody thinks that's a great idea, but I'll tell you what, if my wife will find me some of this, I'm not going to agree to that. No, bullshit. I'm not agreeing to that bullshit. All right. All right, shall we go on?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, what do
Okay.
we have here?
So here, I actually, so you mentioned that I was on a trip. It was freezing in Europe. Someone I saw that in the chat that they were in Europe for a month. Yeah, it was freezing while we were there. And my lips got chapped. So I actually did some research on what would be some good lip treatment that I could use. So if you watched Saints and Sisters, which if you haven't, go back and watch it. I do like a few different lipstick reviews on there, but I am going to try this Too Faced Pillow Balm live unboxing with you.
Oh,
I
wow.
am not cool enough to get this stuff for free, so I actually purchased it at Ulta. Maybe one day I'll be cool enough. Who knows?
Well,
But
when they see this episode, they'll ask, yeah.
yes, but it does say on the box,
Oh no.
smells like coconut water.
This is my Aimee. She says I'm already on Amazon. And look, she'll do it too because someone else had mentioned that underwear thing and she got on there and bought it. I'm gonna have to ban her from my
I
from my
think I think
streams.
you need to get some of the Mason boxer underwear things that are on Amazon. Okay, so it supposedly smells like coconut water. I've never actually smelled coconut water. No, I take it back. I have. It kind of doesn't smell like coconuts. Coconut water has a weird smell to it. It smells like coconuts.
Okay.
So we'll give it that. So I'm gonna just I do feel some. Oh, it tastes like coconut.
Oh wow.
So we'll see how well it hydrates. It's not exactly lipstick. It's a pillow balm.
Do you
But
think that Elder Ballard would that count for put a
I
little
don't
lipstick on and
know.
look a little charming?
I
Since
don't
it's not
know.
actually
It's
lipstick?
not like actually lipstick. It's not really colored. I was worried it was going to be really like baby pink and then just look weird. But I don't know. And may he rest in peace. We'll never be able to find out. So, if I'm on again, we'll have another product to review.
Okay, well, very interesting, and I mean he is an apostle, and so you know,
So I'm following. Apostles. I'm following you right now by putting on my Too Faced Pillow Balm and enjoying the fact that it does taste like coconuts. Yes, I am now righteous.
all right. So shall we go to the next slide?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, here we go.
Okay. So this was from the Gospel Topic essay that is on the church website. I pulled this straight from there. That's the link, the citation on it. And part of this comes from that whole idea that, women and men in the church, we have equal parts where we work together and we each have equal parts. I've
Mhm.
heard that. And this says women and men enjoy many opportunities for service in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, both within local congregations and at church-wide level. Among other things, Latter-day Saint women preach sermons in Sunday meetings. So do the men, and it's like, cool, here's a talk. And no one really wants to do it, let's just be honest. And the Church's General Conference, which, if you follow any of the other podcasters that are out there, they always will give the statistics on how few times women actually speak at
Yeah.
General Conference. They get to serve full-time proselyting missions, even though they're for less time and you have to wait till you're older, and they don't get to serve. They can train other missionaries, but they don't get to serve in the mission presidency. They don't actually get like a cool role or anything like that. It's just, hey, we're here, we're going to teach you, and then we'll hand you off. They get to perform and officiate holy rites in the church's temple. I will say that I will give them that one. and lead organizations that minister to family, other women, young women, and children. And they participate in priesthood councils at the local and general levels. So, problem one, even though I already pointed out a few other problems, but problem one here, women's service in the church is dependent upon the assignments and authority given by men, even those women who are temple workers. I was a temple worker at one point. Their authority, you're set apart. That authority is given by men, and this has changed over time. In researching this, I found that actually women in the beginning of the church, despite polygamy and all of that, had a little bit more that they were able to do. I look at that, which will be on the next slide, partially because of the Protestant movement at the time and the role that women had in the Protestant church, and how much things like the Protestant revival play a part in the bringing about of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. But that has actually changed as the political scene has changed. And then problem two, yeah, women serve on councils, but they don't have an equal voice or representation. And one of the quotes that we shared last time was how women need to really just not talk much. You correct the brethren, and then you just stop talking in these councils. And then the number of women on these councils is not equal to the number of men on these councils. So you're not actually getting the women's voice. And if you're a woman who shuts up and wears gray and is very right there with the patriarchy, follows the patriarchy, um, you're not getting the women's voices at all. And I know that there are, because I've been in this situation where there's leadership that will surround themselves with yes women to avoid having any sort of conflict. What were those councils like for you?
Well, I can say that when there were women there, they were always much better at their ideas and much more organized and actually did the things they say they would do. You know, it would be like, well, what about Elders Quorum? Like, oh, same as last time. And, Relief Society president, she'll rattle off, well, these were our assignments last time. This is what we did. I mean, so much more organized, and actually usually did the stuff that they said they were going to do. No doubt about that. I think everyone would probably say something similar. That was that way in every council I had ever been in.
Yes, I would agree. In the one bishop that I told you about, the women's voices were very shut down. And then I had another bishop who also is not a member anymore, but he was very, very open and supportive of the women. So, yeah, I think the council is not the way that comes across in those gospel topic essays is that, oh yeah, their voice is right there and it's right there equal to men's. No, it's not. It's
Right.
not.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely remember, if a sister wanted a particular person in a calling, the bishopric would trump that and say, well, no,
Yeah.
your revelation is second to our revelation type thing.
Yeah, yeah. It's like you're playing this game of Uno, but you always have a losing hand.
Yeah, I see that. Would you like the next slide?
Yes, next slide.
Okay.
So this is what I was starting to get at. So the ERA is not like it kind of makes me think of like Ireland, but that's the IRA. So no, it's not the same thing. The ERA is the Equal Rights Amendment. And the Equal Rights Amendment is actually something that still has yet to be put into law today. And the Mormon Church has a big part in that. And so in the early parts of when the church was originally starting, women, and I learned this, could actually provide blessings of healing through faith. They had to be set apart by the men, but women could actually provide blessings of healing, which this is kind of how this timeline goes. But Elizabeth Whitney was someone who Joseph Smith had ordained to be able to do this. And she said that she was ordained and set apart under the hand of Joseph Smith, the prophet, to administer to the sick and comfort the sorrowful. Several other sisters were also ordained and set apart to administer in these holy ordinances. That sounds very priesthood-like, doesn't it?
Mhm.
And then in 1926, the first presidency then starts saying, "Hey, we're not going to call on the sisters to administer on the sick, to administer to the sick anymore. The scriptures tell us," and I apologize if a dog starts barking. So I think someone
No
just opened the
worries.
garage door.
No worries.
Um, the scriptures, they tell us that we need to call on the elders. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to call on the elders.
Mm.
The priesthood, they're the ones with the power and authority to administer in the name of Jesus. So that's where we are at 1926.
So,
Well, oh, go
uh,
on.
no, I was going to say, so, just taking that one example, you have Joseph Smith, who ordained or whatever, set apart women for blessings and healings and things. And then a guy or a presidency along the timeline decided, no, let's not do that. And we just run with it. We don't
Yeah.
question, we don't say, well, wait a minute, and it's like every guy after that is like, well, no, and we act like God appeared and said, no more women. They're screwing everything up. It's just,
Yeah.
I'm so sick of that in this church where somebody makes, a decision and then we act like it's the Lord Almighty's will. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. And the interesting thing, which we'll point out, it it actually all falls in line with the Equal Rights Amendment and the politics of the time.
Mm.
But um, this is where Joseph really was taking things from, and I don't give a lot to Joseph, but I will give this to Joseph that, right on, way to take those things from the other Protestant movements at the time. Particularly, there's a lot of research that has been done on this and has been done on even, particularly in Methodism, where women were providing healings and whatnot, that he took that and had that as part of the initial get-go with women in the church.
Mm.
So we can go to the next slide.
Okay.
So, like I said, the 1926, hold on to that date, because the Equal Rights Amendment was actually first proposed in 1923
Mm.
and didn't actually get passed by Congress until 1972. And 1923, 1926. So what are we going to do? We're going to start in the church making some reform here,
Mm.
so that we can kind of keep these crazy women in line. And the purpose of the Equal Rights Amendment, I don't know if anyone saw this with President Biden lately, where he said that it should be law. It's actually not law, and there's some going back and forth on this, on whether it has even is able to become law. But in 1972, it really it really wanted to guarantee equal rights under the law, regardless of sex. So the fact that in 2025, this is actually still not part of the US Constitution, is a little disheartening for us women. But because for it to become part of the Constitution, even though it was passed by Congress, it needed to be ratified by 38 states, and it fell short by 3 by the 1982 deadline. Since then, it has reached the 38 state mark, but because it passed the 1982 deadline, this is where it still remains a point of debate, and it has not actually been enacted into our Constitution. So, while all of this is going on, 1972, all of this, the church steps in, and the the prophet and the apostles, they step in and they start using their women chess pieces. So in the 1970s, the church formally opposed the ERA. Spencer W. Kimball actually said, hey, we want to try to be neutral. But while he's saying that, Gordon B. Hinckley and Jane Z. Faust at the time were actually going around to female leaders like Sister Smith, who was one of the General Relief Society presidency, and really trying to get women to say, hey, yeah, no, we don't want this equal rights amendment. So the church then ends up having at church a bunch of anti-ERA literature. There starts to be talks at conference, in the ward level, the stake level, general conference. And the reason why church leaders expressed that they did not want the ERA to be passed is that they were really worried that it would erode the distinctions between men and women in family roles, and that also it would undermine what the church teaches about gender and marriage. And at the time, there are horrible quotes by some of our favorite people who were apostles about um, how it could lead to things like same-sex marriages, challenges to religious freedoms, and the erosion of females as quote unquote whatever that means.
So let me see if I understand what you're saying about the ERA then. So basically, our church leaders were saying that if we give these equal rights to women and if we support that, then it will ultimately lead to same-sex attraction. What else did you say? Other
Challenges to the religious freedoms. It will make women on the same playing field as men. So at church, it could cause issues with the whole priesthood.
And so we got involved, we meaning the church, got involved in this decision and started coming out with a voice and telling people to organize themselves in opposition to this. Is that
Yes.
okay?
Yes. Kind of like similar to how you kind of see it with, if anyone's been following the like the Fairview, Texas temple, and similar. But they had some Congress people in their back pocket. The church actually knew before some of the votes would actually even were coming down the pike. They knew ahead of time and would mobilize. They played a big part in um, Florida's vote on ratification, Virginia's, um, Utah, obviously, they played a big part in Arizona's, and Florida still has not ratified. Utah definitely has not. Arizona hasn't. So, yeah, it's the church has played a big part in really trying to make sure that the ERA was not put into law. And I believe it was in Florida that 75% of the votes against the ERA were from members.
Wow. Was that the end of that slide, Aimee, or?
Yeah, that was the end of that slide.
Okay, you want to go to the next?
Yep, let's go to the next one.
Okay.
So this was, in 1970 from General Conference, where Ezra Taft Benson, he was actually one of the most outspoken against the ERA. Hinckley and Faust weren't fans of it, but they were more behind the scenes puppet masters, where Ezra Taft Benson was like, nope, this is how it is. I'm going to be very outspoken. And
hey,
so
Aimee, let's welcome Songs real quick. She's in the
hey,
chat.
Songs. Hey.
We've been talking about you a little bit.
Yes.
Songs, welcome. All right, go ahead, Aimee.
Yeah, so Ezra Taft Benson, he says the so-called Equal Rights Amendment strikes at the family at the very heart of our moral and religious heritage. The Equal Rights Amendment seeks to elevate women to the positions of men and thereby diminish the family and its divine role in the eternal plan of God. And that's the conference talk that came from. And so when I talked about Sister Smith, she was the 10th General Relief Society president. She really did play this crucial role in mobilizing women to be against this. And when women started going against this, they didn't even realize some of the things that they were voting against, because it 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 delved it they started just, I don't want to vote against anything that the brethren tell me I shouldn't vote against. So there were laws that were being put on the table. Let me, if this messes up the screen with you, I apologize. But I was just going to pull up some of the other
Yeah.
things here. So, and I'll share the link to this. It's actually a JSTOR article, and it was put out by O. Kendall White, who is a scholar who looked at Mormonism and the Equal Rights Amendment. But what um, he says in his manuscript here is that the apostles Gordon B. Hinckley and James E. Faust, they met with Barbara Smith, who was the president of the Relief Society, to inform her that the church was officially going to oppose the ERA, and urged her to argue against the ratification by the states. And she did this in both conference and in a speech that was scheduled for the University of Utah. And even though this was after President Kimball's disclaimer that, hey, the church is going to be neutral, this really kept moving forward. And it was being moved forward by kind of the people that were surrounding President Kimball. So one of the quotes that was with this was, and this was by President Kimball, that he said that Mormonism from its very beginning affirmed the exalted role of women within our society. And he noted that the Relief Society was established to be the companion body to the male priesthood, and that women received the right to vote in Utah in 1870. And with that, any additional rights to which women were entitled, which really, um, it's not true. Um, so he he then says that, in the same vein, he says that far more restraints and repressions stifle many God-given feminine instincts and nullify many accumulated benefits to women in their present statuses. And they fail to uh, Oh, sorry. This is not President Kimball, the writer of this article. He said that indeed the latter may bring far more restraints and repressions and stifle the many God-given feminine instincts and nullify many accumulated benefits to women in their present statuses, and fail to recognize inherent emotional and biological differences between males and females. So this is a theme that then goes on for a long time within the church. And as this happens, this is when really there's this whole shift in the church where so much more is being stripped from women. So women can't have a meeting at the church unless there's two priesthood there. Um, the idea that women can't choose who their counselors are, as we already talked about, that really has to be approved by men. All of this really is stemming from this equal rights amendment push.
What
That
about the prayer? They couldn't give
Oh
prayer in
yeah,
general conference until sometime fairly recently.
yeah, fairly recently. And until fairly recently in the temple, women had to veil their faces in the prayer circle. Like, God seeing my face is going to somehow limit the spirit here.
Yeah.
So you could see there's this whole oppression that comes with this. And something that I thought was really interesting is that the women and their kind of falling and stepping in line with what I call them puppet masters, but I don't know what else to call them. What the puppet master men were kind of doing behind the scenes has played a huge role in even non-members having the Equal Rights Amendment as something that guarantees that rights aren't going to be different based on sex. And so, I don't know, I feel like this really has shaped our political landscape. I think it's really shaped the way, when you look at in jobs, the pay gap, when you look at even things when it comes to divorce or family law, like these things really shape a lot of this for people outside of the church. And part of me gets a little angry because I'm like, how cute are we being, when I was a Mormon or Latter-day Saint, whatever, like I said, I'm using those interchangeably.
Yeah.
Um, how cute are we that we think that what we think should be imposed on everyone else, but when other people have differing views, we don't even want to hear it. We shut down, and it's
Right.
it's anti. We can't hear it. Um, and especially when things are so hurtful to a whole group of people.
I agree. Did that finish that slide out, or
Yep.
was there?
Yep.
Okay.
That finishes that slide out.
Okay. So you mentioned this part about Sister Smith and how she was the Relief Society General Relief Society president, correct?
Correct.
And I was just going to mention that this was a story that was going through the Exmo, well, not only the Exmo spaces, but actually the faithful side. So this was the current General Relief Society president, Camille Johnson, or we could say President Johnson.
She has lipstick on, by the way. Do you see this? Does everyone see this? She's looking charming.
She's looking a little charming. And I was going to play it, but anyways, the part that was pertinent to this was she starts off by saying, and this is kind of like a New Year's resolution type post. She says, "Sisters, in this new year, I invite you to join me in cultivating your testimony of prophets and apostles." And she goes along talking about that for another minute or two. Well, this has happened a few times within the past year or maybe two, where the sisters speak out. They're like, you know what? And so I'm going to make this a little bit bigger for a second. This is a faithful post, on a faithful site or whatever. And this was what people were saying. "I love the prophets and apostles, and I have great respect for them and what they do. They are doing their best to be a light and an example to the world. However, I yearn deeply for the voices of women to be amplified as well. We hear from so many men all the time, but the women have so much more to offer." Another person said, "Wouldn't it be wonderful to lift up the voices and perspectives and ideas of women?" Two more real quick. Another person says, "I would rather have my amazing Relief Society leaders like you encourage me to study your words and other brilliant past women and leaders." And the last one here that I'll share, "We already hear from men almost exclusively in the church. What if the Relief Society, supposedly a women's organization, amplified the voices of women?" So I thought that was one awesome for these, women to speak up and say, you know what? We've heard plenty from the men, like if you want to give us a New Year's resolution suggestion, how about let's amplify and focus more on the voices of women. And so you do see this from time to time kind of come to light in the faithful side, and so I think there's been some progress there, but we're certainly not where we need to be.
We'll see if more women are speaking at conference.
Right? Yes. I don't know. I think we can count on what, two or three usually, maybe
Yeah.
four.
We should
Yeah.
see how many times women are quoted at conference, because usually people are like, the
Oh, oh yeah. Even when the women speak, they spend all of their time saying, President Nelson has told us
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Hey, y'all, we need a drinking game. Every time someone quotes President Nelson at the next conference, let's all get on and take a shot.
I like that. Well, so we've had some great slides from you and input about the ERA and different ideas. We've had a lot of people in the chat. If there's anyone else that wants to chime in on these women issues that we're speaking of, welcome Ruth and welcome Dave and some other people that Coach and some other people. Let me just say that I personally, I was talking with my wife earlier today, and we was talking about this topic of, feminist or whatever. I said, you know what? I kind of feel like the great. Let me share my screen. I kind of feel like the great Beyonce. The girls are the ones that run the world. So I have no.
I actually almost brought that up too when you were talking. Another Pitch Perfect song. I feel like I'm going to encourage everyone to go watch Pitch Perfect now. Pitch Perfect 2, by the way, that's when these are in. Pitch Perfect 2, Fat Aimee, Not Being Restrained, and Who Runs the World, Girls.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I can definitely get on board with that. So, I love this topic. I love to see women speak out. It's definitely needed on the faithful side. And we know that they don't probably listen to us, but there are people speaking out. And we know you just showed us how the church does cave to pressure, which is what they've done all along, and they try to get involved. They did that with the civil rights stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They did it with the women's rights stuff. So they try to get involved, but ultimately they do cave. Every time there's been a significant change in the church, it's because there's been someone that has initiated that and got and started the ball rolling, and the church will cave. So. Any concluding thoughts from you, Aimee, or anyone in the chat? Do we have another minute or two here? And anything else, Aimee?
Yeah, no, other than
Real
it's a
quick,
shame.
sorry. Colt says we're going to be blackout drunk if we do what you.
We will be, and it could be great. I've never actually been drunk, so we could see how much this Irish girl actually can hold her liquor.
Go ahead, I cut you off, Aimee.
Yeah, no, you're fine. I was just gonna say, and just to your point, that it's really sad that those people either end up leaving the church to speak out, or they get excommunicated and they speak out, and that's when the change happens. But someone has to be the martyr for it.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for this lipstick talk. Your lips look great.
Yes, well, thanks. And they still taste like coconut. So,
but even more for your personal story and allowing us a glimpse into, the ways that honestly that you were treated terribly and your family, and it's. In one way, it's a shame they did that. On the other hand, you have freedom from it, so it's.
yes.
But either way, you shouldn't have been treated that way. And
well, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, it was hell, but we're on a better side of it now.
Yeah. Okay, well, I want to thank you again. I want to let everyone know that tomorrow I'm going to have a great guest on. Her name is Samantha from Mourn with Those Who Mourned. She's on TikTok and Instagram, and has she's great. So you guys will love her. And I also have something brewing for Wednesday. So hope you guys will join me then. I hope that Aimee, you'll continue to come on. And we did talk about doing this lipstick series maybe once every other week or so. So we'll be looking forward to hearing from you again.
All right. Take care, guys. Everyone have a good night.
All right. Well, thanks again. And I'm going to hit my theme music and let you guys get on with your night. So thanks a lot, and take care.